Hello there. Welcome to my channel Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly and it's time to hop. It is time for our monthly YouTube sketch hop where 8 of us get together on the second Friday of the month and do our take on a chosen sketch, and it's so much fun. This month's sketch was chosen by Jessica Dupinski, and it's from the spring of 2022 from Scrapbook and Cards Today by Pagemaps. So we have squares, and we mostly have vertical and horizontal patterns. So it looks to me like we have 3x4 opportunities here for photos and 4x6 for opportunities of photos. Now, of course, I'm doing a double page layout tonight, and I have a variety of photos, good and bad, from a trip that I took with 5 of my 8 grandkids and my only daughter to the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we went and did a tour of Jewel Cave. So you can see that some of the photos inside the cave that are actually of my grandkids are a little bit dark. I brightened those up as much as I could. And then I have this long horizontal photo of them goofing around outside the cave when we got started. And I have 3 of them where they're trying to crawl through the smallest space to learn what it's like to go spelunking or cave exploring. So some of the photos I've had trouble scrapping because they're a little bit darker than I wanted them to be, but I've scrapped the whole weekend, so I'm excited to get these done. Now, I recently did several feature layouts with the Everyday You and Me Scrapbooking Workshop Kit. I have process videos on both of these, and they're a little bit more elevated and a little bit more over the top, and I have some leftovers, and I thought how nice it might be to take those leftovers and make a layout that's a little bit more functional and that has enough photo opportunities to get all of those photos that we just looked at into one layout. So you know what that means. When we're stretching photo opportunities, we're going to use some 3x4 signature flip-flaps and some 4x6 signature flip-flaps and see if I can get this hodgepodge of photos to work, but I also have a lot to say. So what I did is I opened up a Word document, I did a draw-in text box, and I sized it 3x4, and I typed all of my stories in the 3x4 boxes, and then I printed it on regular printer paper first to make sure that they would work, and then I printed it again on 8.5x11 cardstock. And I feel like because there's so much journaling, I should be able to put that journaling underneath 2 additional photos underneath the flip-flaps and get all of these photos knocked out in one layout. So it's interesting because the actual parts and pieces of the cave are absolutely gorgeous, and you can see that they have a really bright gold tone in them. And then the pictures down inside the cave are pretty brown and pretty dark. And I really want to focus on my grandchildren, but I absolutely want to get those gorgeous shots of inside the cave in there. And then there's this one, this problem child, this horizontal photo that I actually did put on my app. I have an app that I can change the orientation of the photos. I can stretch them, and most often I can make a horizontal vertical or a vertical photo horizontal. So the app that I use is called Print to Size, and literally 99% of the time I can get the photo to go in the direction that I want it to go, and I just couldn't get that one to work, but it's the only photo that I have outside the cave of all of them together. So I think I could snip it in half and do 2 3x4s with it, but for now, until I decide what to do, I know it might bug somebody, but I'm actually going to put it in there the wrong way just so it stays with these memories, and then I'm going to work on those. But I'm actually going to add my flip-flaps to my photos and then the photo mats, and you'll see here in a little while down the road how I do that. But I have my photos mounted on a 1/4 inch white, so the 4x6 are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and that's where I have them so far, and I have them now so that I can actually fit 2 photos in each flip flap and then journaling underneath, 3 photos in each flip flap on the 4x6s. So I actually already had these frames. I've used the inside out of these frames, and instead of a white background, I really want to use these frames up, and I really feel like this is going to be a perfect background for these more, earthy tones, and it's actually going to bring in just a little bit of color. And then I'm going to add in the Everyday You and Me in my leftovers, I'm going to add some checkered pieces and some striped pieces. So the checkered piece, if you notice on the left of the sketch, it's not a complete piece. And so that piece is actually going to be 3x5, and not very much of that is going to show. On the right, it's going to be starting out at 5x12, but then I'm able to cut off about 3/4 of an inch on the edge, and we'll look at how much we can cut off later once I get all the photo mats in place. And then the striped piece, of course, is going to run the length of the 12 inches, but I won't be needing all of that. I'm going to leave it where it is right now, and then when I get everything in place, I think we can save the center of that. Now when I'm looking at my photos, the white is just sort of blending into the pale blue background, and there's so much brown in the photos, I thought I could bring in some early espresso. So I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch up above each of the photo mats, so it's going to be 3.5 by 4.5 for the smaller photos and 4.5 by 6.5 for the larger photos, and there we go. That pops so much more. The smallest thing that I learned years ago for elevating pages is photo mats. Photo mats really make a difference in your pages. I don't use photo mats always. There are sometimes it's really appropriate to put them directly on the page, but more often than not, a photo mat really just puts your layout at the next level. Now I'm trying to decide. They have 2 squares on the left, so they have one square that's more closer toward the right side and flush, and then they have another square that's on the left-hand side that is the base of the 2 photos that you're going to have, the larger photos on the left side. I really feel like bringing that brown in again, but I also feel like it looks a little plain. And what I typically like to add to masculine or outdoor layouts is embossing, texture. If you can add texture to existing bits and pieces, it oftentimes gives it more of an outdoor or a masculine feel. So I'm sort of shopping between the patterns here. So we have a little bit of a blue wash pattern, and then I also have this pattern here that it's really hard to decide which one is going to work the best. I do end up going with the wild wheat, so it sort of coordinates with the stripe over on the right, but it's very tempting to use this blue pattern as well. I think both of them would be great, but I do end up going with the wild wheat. Now, when I'm looking at the early espresso cardstock here, right now it's 10 by 10. But I really don't need the whole 10 by 10 because I would love to emboss these pieces, but I'm not able to emboss a 10 by 10 piece. So I'm actually going to trim those down because most of that is going to be covered, and I could add some texture that way to take it from a more plain layout to give it a more masculine outdoor feel and elevate it just a tiny bit by embossing. So I'm going to trim that down 2 by 10 on the bottom of each side and 4 by 10, I think 4.5 by 10 on each side for that top piece, and I think that's going to work. Now the wild wheat pattern, the final answer on that is 8.5 by 9, 9 being the width, 8.5 being the height, and it's going to barely cover up my gutted frame. Now, if you I'm just using the gutted frames because I already had them. So you can use a whole sheet underneath, or instead of gutting that frame from 2 inches to 10 inches all the way around, you could give yourself another 1/8 of an inch, and then you'd have better coverage than I did. What I ended up doing to solve the problem is cutting about an 1/8 of an inch off of my 12 by 12 paper, which doesn't bother me. So just so that I could cover up my hole and still be able to get by with using that frame. So now I'm going to arrange the pieces and pretty much stick to the sketch on those pieces, but I'm going to pull out some of my awesome embossing folders. So I've got like a birch wood, I've got the 3D plaid, I have a painted trees 3D embossing folder, and I'd like to try some of those and just see what they look like and see what they would add to my pages. So the painted trees is really, really pretty, but in order for me to get to the right side, the way the embossing folder is designed, it opens from the left. It's a little challenging for me to get the trees over on the right so that they show. And also, most of the tree would be covered up. I really love the plaid. The birch wood or the different woods that I could use are really nice as well. I think both of those would work, but a really cool outdoorsy feel to me is the plaid. So I think what I'll go ahead and do is emboss the 4.5 by 10 and the 2 by 10 early espresso cardstock pieces with the 3D plaid embossing folder. And then that reminded me, when I pulled out the painted trees 3D embossing folder, I had my peaceful evergreens in it as well. And I thought that might be a great way to add my easy embellishing. This isn't going to be a tough one tonight. So what we're going to do is I put that plaid, I put the paper at the edge so that it would be a little bit easier to line it up, because I have to run that through the embossing folder twice, and it's not perfect. It doesn't line up perfectly. I didn't get it lined up perfectly. That's not to say that you won't, but it doesn't matter. It's not really going to show. So you're going to see the plaid sticking out the top, and there's also going to be some of it covered up with the paper, so it doesn't bother me that I didn't get the 2 pieces that I put together when I put it back in the embossing folder exactly perfect. So this one is such an easy one. It's just going to be so easy to put it together according to the sketch, and I really want to do easy embellishing. So I have very little left with the embellishments that I did the previous 2 layouts with the Everyday You and Me scrapbooking workshop, because both of those layouts were sort of over the top, and I was sort of a little piggy when it came to embellishing those. I just used up tons of pieces on one page, each of those pages. So I really like the idea of just really simple embellishing with this one. Some trees and maybe a few of the little leftover stickers and word stickers that I happen to have with this collection. And I showed everything in this scrapbooking workshop in the previous layout that I'll link in the description. You can just click the More button, and I'll link those down in the description if you want to see all of the things that are in this scrapbooking workshop kit. It is on our last chance, and it is going to be my featured scrapbooking workshops next month. So I'll be doing a 10-page Simply Scrappin' with this and a 12-page Sparkle and Shine with this, but I loved it so much I got an extra to do some extra layouts with it. So I was able to do those 2 feature layouts and a couple other layouts with it as well. So now I'm getting those pieces together, and I want to put my journaling and my photo mat pretty flush against the left page on the right page, against the left edge of the right page, so that I can figure out how much I can cut off. It ends up being about 3/4 of an inch that I can cut off, because the original sketch doesn't show this piece going all the way to the edge. And so I'm really liking how that's looking with the early espresso. I think it makes all the difference in the world. I'm also linking in the description all of the other ladies' videos, and it's so fun for me to grab a big cuppa of whatever and to sit down and watch all the ladies' videos. And it's so crazy to me how we're all using the same sketch and they all come out so differently but so inspiring. So it's one of my favorite things to do each month is to do this sketch up with these ladies. Okay, so now you can see that I'm going to show you again one more time how we're going to get that flip flap together. So I'm going to line it up perfectly over the top of the piece that actually has the white border so that I can use the white border for the photo on top as well. So inside the flip flap is the 4x6 photo, and then we're arranging that perfectly to fit over the top of the other 4x6 photo that has a 4¼ by 6¼ frame. And then we're actually going to tuck that between the early espresso piece. So you take the adhesive off, tuck it between the early espresso piece and the white willow piece, and it fits perfectly. And I know that I have the one photo there going the wrong way, and I purposely want it in there. I want to save it in there until I decide what to do with that, because I love that photo, and it's the only extra photo that I have that goes with this series. So I'm going to do the same thing for all of the flip flaps on the right, and I'm going to get all of those flip flaps in place, and then we'll have journaling underneath each flip flap. And when you flip the flap up, I have each of 3 grandkids spelunking through or going through the little teeny tiny opening. And they thought that was so fun because I tried to explain to them that this is 220 miles of cave. So it is, gosh, is it the 5th largest in the world? So the 5th largest cave in the world. And I think it's the 3rd largest or 2nd largest in the United States. And so I said to them, what would you think if you had to crawl with only that amount of space above you and below you through miles and miles of cave with no light except for the light that you're holding or the light that's on your hard hat? And they were like, whoa. And my grandson Carter, who was he 13 at this time or 14? And he has a really, really long body, and he was crawling through that, and they just thought that was super interesting. So I showed you with the flip flaps how you don't have to be completely vertical, and you can still make flip flaps work. Now, it's very easy to straighten your photos out and just have straight photos, but on the sketch, there's also a small 3/4 inch strip, what it looks like, underneath those photos. So I hugged those photos closer to the top of the wild wheat pattern, and then added that strip underneath, and it's about 11½ inches. So 3/4 by 11½ inches. Now here's where I go ahead and add the striped strip, and I'm able to save about 5 inches, I think, of that piece that I can use on something else. So the final sizes are 3¼ by 5 and 4¼ by 5. So we were able to save a pretty good chunk in there. Okay, so I decide to go with All of Us Together for the title, this leftover piece that I had from my Everyday You and Me workshop. Even though the original has just this little tiny title over here, I really wanted to use this title up, and because it's 5 out of 8 of the grandkids, and we're with my daughter and myself, we're all together and we're having a good time, I think it's going to fit. And I'll just lay it there and see how I feel. I can always change my mind, but really the embellishments on the sketch are so simple. A few in the lower left, a few on the left page by the bottom of the photos, and then a little tiny bit of embellishing on the right. And here's where I think that we're going to be able to use the peaceful evergreens. So when I looked up on the Stampin' Up site for the coordinating cardstocks with this paper pack, or if with this workshop, they said that Mossy Meadow was one of the coordinating colors. And I have a tendency just to trust them because they've been doing colors for so many years. So because the cardstock is two-toned, we have a light side and a true side. So I'm just taking some of those Peaceful Evergreen stamps, stamping the light and dark Mossy Meadow in Mossy Meadow, And then I will die cut those out with the dies that come in that set. But you can also, if you don't want to stamp, you can actually die cut a top and a little bit of an extra piece that can go over the top. So you can decide if you want only die cut trees or if you want stamped and dyed trees. I'll probably dirty up the edges of all of these with a little pecan pie ink. And in the Black Hills, the trees are green and almost black off in the distance. But then we also had, sadly, a pine beetle problem for a while. So there's a lot of a rusty color in the hills as well. A lot of it is gone now. They've cleared a lot of it out and they've been able to do some healing in the Black Hills, but it did cause some damage. So when you looked off in the distance, you really saw green, black, and rust colors. But I'm going to dirty these edges up. And even though we were down in the cave, we were in Custer State Park in the Black Hills. And so there were trees all around us, and we did lots of other things this weekend in the trees. So I ended up loving the stamped trees. Those, I love the die cut trees too, but for this layout, I really see myself just clustering a few of those trees, and I'll use some of the little skeleton parts that could normally go on top. I'll just use them as a skinnier tree in the back and make a couple little spots here with those. And I think that's going to be really, really cool. So I do think it's really, really neat in Jewel Cave that it's really only, it's about 2.5 hours from us, and it is a fun thing to do with the kids and to learn a lot. But if you think back in 1959, they had only discovered 2 miles of that, and since that time they have 220 miles that you can explore. Not the average person can't explore, but that can actually be gotten to, and they can spend days and days and days down there. And this is a cave that's considered a breathing cave where the air circulates based on the weather, and there are all kinds of neat things in there. One of the photos that I have is actually, it's called Cave Bacon, and the kids thought that was really fun. There's cave bacon and cave popcorn, but the cave bacon is it's just like a, what is it? It's like a formation, and it just looks like bacon, and it's kind of translucent. It's like a ribbon. It's a ribbon of minerals that grow from the walls of the cave. And so they do a really good job of preserving that as like a little highlight that people can see. So now you can see I've just clustered those trees. I'm popping up the top little row. I had to make a couple more because I really wanted 2 of those on the upper right, but I still wanted them on these left page clusters as well. These are such gorgeous trees, and we have so many beautiful tree Stampin' dies, so just pull out your favorites. Now I have just this hardly any stickers left in this collection because I've used them all. I have this little stripe sticker, just a part of a sticker left because I'm such a little scrounger. I just use little bits and pieces. So I'm going to put a couple of those there. There's some little word stickers left. So I really do like Together We Have It All, I think would maybe look good. There's one that's the story, which is white, which I think I like the more mink colored or the basic, I think it's basic gray, maybe. I'm thinking, I'm not exactly sure of that color, but I think it would look good if I popped it on just a tiny bit of blue. So I found a little scrap of the blue from the Everyday You and Me paper, put that underneath the Together We Have It All sticker. I do have this little tiny floral sticker left, and it's my only sticker left like this, and I'm like, I know it's floral, but I think it would look really cute right here and get it done, get it gone. And then maybe a couple little circles over here. We really don't have any round elements on this page, but I do love the fact that we have what, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 photos and 3 journal mats. So you could even have 15 photos on this and have it look like 5, but those flip flaps really help you extend. And the quality of the photos weren't so great that I wanted to do page after page of this. Plus we did a lot of other fun things on this trip. We went out for ice cream, we did some hiking, we played mini golf, we did a ton of things. And so I really only needed this one page, and that that those flip flaps saved me, and I think I was able to use the darker cave photos with the early espresso by adding a little bit of the embossing to the brown cardstock. It added texture. I added a little bit of the pressed motif dots to finish it off, and I'm happy. It's a different style than I normally do, but I absolutely love doing this, and I loved being able to get the last of these photos from a year ago completed and in the album. I hope you like it. I hope you'll click on all of the other YouTube links for the sketch hop and go ahead and click on that playlist. It's in the description here, and let's take a look at how we did compared to the sketch. I think we did pretty good. I think we did it justice. Thanks to Jessica Dupinski for picking the sketch and to Pagemaps for the free sketch. And I hope you'll give me a thumbs up, hit like, subscribe, the notifications bell, and of course I love hearing from you, so shoot me a comment. It really goes a long ways on YouTube to keep me encouraged and keep me sharing. Thank you so much for watching and hopping along. Come back soon for more right here on Snips by Kelly. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.